Today's flight originates in Innsbruck, Austria. This small airport is normally used for commercial flights and is just west of the city of Innsbruck. It sits at 2,900 feet. I waggle the rudder, signal the wing runner, and the pilot of the tilt plane begins the process of launch. The heads-up display that you see includes an airspeed indicator calibrated in kilometers per hour and knots. There is a motor in this glider. I won't be using it today, but this will indicate engine RPM in that small dial. One labeled varial is the variometer, the most sensitive instrument for detecting the lift, the rate of ascent, or rate of descent. It should agree reasonably well on the bottom right with the vertical speed indicator, and the end result will be shown on the altimeter on the far right. At the top left is the compass. We took off to the west. I've set the weather today for 10-knot wind out of the west. That'll help us generate some ridge lift, but it'll also stimulate thermal lift in this valley. Occasionally there will be some gusts that go beyond 10 knots. We continue this climb to 3,000 feet. At 3,000 feet, the tilt plane will indicate that I should detach by waggling the wings quite noticeably. Because at this altitude I'm flying so close to the landing pattern, Microsoft Flight Simulator indicates I should be taking some steps to initiate landing, such as dumping water ballast. But in fact, that's not my intent. We're now at the 3,000 foot level. You see the waggling of the wings. I detach the tow rope and make a turn to the right, as is the convention when flying a sailplane. The next part of the process is to retract the landing gear to maximize my glide efficiency and then find some lift. Here we find some strong ridge lift from that westerly wind that is blowing to some parts of this ridge, even though we're seeing mostly the southerly component of that wind. We'll continue to climb strongly in this ridge lift and gain quite a bit more altitude than where we released. You'll notice that we are about 3,500 feet too high to enter a pattern to land, so it's time to find ways to kill off some of that excess elevation. We can fly around and find some sink, or we can practice some other maneuvers that will kill elevation. One good way to kill some elevation is to practice stalls. The stall speed of this airplane is 67 kilometers per hour. If you watch the airspeed indicator here, you'll see that I'm going to pull back on the elevator, cause the speed to drop quite dramatically below 67. The nose drops out, faces the ground. In order to recover, I have to push the stick forward to get some airspeed across the wings and allow it to continue flying. To better get the experience of a stall in a sailplane, let's go inside the cockpit. This is what the pilot sees when you initiate a stall, taking that speed below 67 miles per hour. You first see the sky, and then you see the ground. You have to be properly trained to remember to push the stick forward when your inclination is in fact to pull back. We're still too high to enter the pattern, so we're going to fly further west, lose a little bit more altitude. Even though the lift is so strong, we're continuing to climb. At some point up here, we'll make a U-turn and then start other measures to kill altitude as we approach the airport. Now turning back towards the airport, I have to take measures to prepare for landing. The first thing to do is to jettison the water ballast. The water ballast was there to help extend my glide ratio, but I no longer need it. I need to then also extend my landing gear. And finally, I'll enter a sideslip, a maneuver to fly sideways. As I deploy my air brakes, this will kill altitude at a much faster rate than anything else that I can do. Watch the altimeter continue to drop as I approach the entry point of the landing pattern. When I believe I've lost enough elevation, I'll straighten out and fly directly towards the airport. The rule of thumb for flying in a pattern in a sailplane is to fly your stall speed, or 67 kilometers per hour, plus half of that, plus the wind speed. That would mean that we should be flying at about 110 kilometers per hour. But at 110 kilometers per hour, Microsoft Flight Simulator says we're too fast. I need to get that speed down closer to about 80 before these indicators say that I'm not flying too fast. I'm demonstrating that it's possible to fly the indicated speed of Microsoft Flight Simulator, but in real life, this would subject a sailplane to a potential stall. Turning now on to the base leg from the downwind. We're at about the right elevation. Some minor adjustments need to be made. And I'll begin to look over my left shoulder at the runway to make sure that I'm making the proper position to turn onto final. At this point on final, I modulate the air brakes to get me on the correct glide path. I use my ailerons to get me on the correct path aligned with the center of the runway, and I use the rudder to make sure that the plane is aligned so that the nose and tail are pointing down the runway. I will try to get it close to 70 kilometers per hour before the wheel touches, and at which point I would like to have the air brakes in, because the same control for the air brakes operates the wheel brake, and I don't want to skid. I will allow the sailplane to continue rolling far down the runway here to get out of the way, but as the velocity of the sailplane gets lower and lower, it becomes increasingly difficult to keep the wings level for a lack of enough air to maintain lift on them. At some point, I'll put my air brakes back out here, and that will apply the brake and allow me to put one wing down to complete the flight. This is a view from inside the cockpit as I release the latch to raise the canopy, and I can take a step outside so you can have a good look around the sailplane as it sits on the runway.